If you're on the rocks, just buy a new home. It's too much construction. So he's got a good marriage. He's got a smile on his face going through a brutal 2 years. I want to start with this. You've been on good teams. Sometimes, Jimmy Johnson said this, sometimes you show up and you just get your arse kicked. And I look at Tampa and I'm like, nothing about that was good. If you were a Buccaneer the next morning, can you just get over it? Is that easier to get over than a close loss?
I'm not. When you lose the way they lost, I don't think it's easy at all, considering the way opening weekend went for them against that same Saints team. And so it was like, oh, they won't play this bad again. There's no way the Saints can beat them this way again. And they beat them worse than they did the first game. And so for me, it would be tough to get over this. But obviously we have to. It wasn't a competitive game. They had no answer for the Saints. They couldn't do anything. And for me, until they start to beat really good teams, it's going to always have that thought in the back of their mind, like, are we really as good as we think we are? Because if they get behind against another good team by double digits, that Saints game is going to be in the back of their mind. And a guy like Brady, maybe not, because he had so much success. But the majority of that Bucs roster has been on that team. They're going to revert back to, oh, man, here we go again type of feeling.
You know, it's interesting. Joy and I on Antonio Brown are like, you know, we'll just play. We're not going to make any predictions on this. I did feel like that they were forcing it to him. And I felt like Mike Evans got, and who I think's the better player right now, the bigger, easier target, big catching radius, and didn't throw much to him. And this is what worries me. Receivers want looks. It's a real thing. Like, right, you guys are the NBA players of the NFL. You break the huddle first. You're the most athletic guy. Like, you can ignore an offensive guard. They always get ignored. But when Mike Evans doesn't get looks, I'm like, that ain't good. That ain't good. And this is what worries me. So go back to your career. You had the kind of personality with Ocho that you understood it, but you still wanted your licks too. And there were games that you felt forgotten. And I felt like, why are they forcing it to AB? It's week 1. Like, did you sense that at all?
I don't think they were forcing it to AB. They didn't have a lot of snaps in the first half. They were 3 and out, 3 and out. So they didn't get to run a lot of plays. Now, with that being said, you don't want to have Mike Evans doubting where he stands. That's the biggest thing is, okay, yeah, I was okay with AB coming on the team, but I still need my looks. And so I believe what needs to happen moving forward is when you go over the first 15 plays of the game, we all know as receivers, we look at the script and we say, okay, they're trying to get me the ball on play 3. Oh, they're trying to get me the ball on play 7. As long as you have plays that you feel are designed for you, whether you get it or not, you feel okay about that. But they need to get first downs in order for that to come to fruition. And they were so bad and anemic on offense, they had no chance. But yes, they need to make Mike Evans feel like we are trying to get you the ball, whether it happens or not, make him feel that way.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. You know this a lot because you've been at these high school football camps. You kept telling us over and over, you're like, Colin, Justin Herbert's going to be unbelievable. You kept telling us, you're like, this kid is unbelievable. I watched Tua, and I'm like, that kid hadn't played in a year and a half. When you watch all these young guys come in, and they are good now, are you shocked, or have you been seeing this for 5 or 6 years at these camps? They're just smarter kids.
I'm not shocked at all. And we've talked about this before, is these kids are seeing different coverages in high school in these 7-on-7 camps. They're getting so many throws, so many different looks. Yeah, the speed of the game is different, but the looks are somewhat similar, albeit they're not disguising as much. So they have an idea of where to go with the ball when they see certain covers. They see a single high safety. We're going to work this side of the field. We see a 2 high safety. We're going to work this side of the field. And so that's what it is. These guys are getting so many throws before they get to college and seeing so many different looks that when they get to the league, they're ready to go. It's just more the mental capacity and slowing yourself and calming yourself down. And once you do that, you see what these guys are doing now.
And, you know, we talked about this. Joy and I talked about this. Quarterback play, they're better earlier. I actually think the offensive coaching in the NFL is better than 10 years ago. And I watched Cam last night, and I'm like, he's not as dynamic a runner. He's, it's a efficiency league as a thrower. Is there a market for Cam Newton anymore in this league?
It's hard to look at what he's doing with New England and say Cam is this or Cam is that. I thought he was very efficient last night. He didn't throw a touchdown, but if you look at New England's receivers, and this is no disrespect to any of their receivers, their starters would be a backup on probably every single team that's not New England.
Yeah.
And that's not being disrespectful. You look at Julian Edelman, he had his best game of his career with Cam Newton as his quarterback, not Tom Brady. Jacoby Myers last night, best game of his career with Cam Newton as a quarterback. Cam needs a really, really good supporting cast. Cam needs a receiver that when they play man-to-man, I know I can go to him and he's going to get open. Julio Jones, Devontae Adams type of guys. He needs one of those guys. He needs a defense that's going to keep him in the game. Nobody is the same player when you're 8-10 years into your career that you were when you first started. But there's still a place for him because he showed last night without weapons that other teams have, I can still get the job done.
Listen, Dallas, we were saying, the Cowboys are now, they remind me a little of the Lakers. Huge brand. You have a singular family that owns them. And to change their trajectory, the Lakers made a seismic move. They fired Magic. They went and got LeBron, and they just said, we got to start this thing over. And Dallas keeps saying, we want Dak. And my takeaway is, listen, man, Russell Wilson, since he got to a Super Bowl against New England, he hasn't won back-to-back road games. You got to rebuild the offensive line. Their best players aren't performing. Dak's coming off, a major injury. Like, how do players look at Dallas? Like, when you look at New England, they're cold. They're cold-hearted. When I look at Dallas, it's like they're family. They're kind of into their feels. Like, how do players look at the Cowboys? Do you look at them as well-run, not well-run?
I look at the Cowboys as a well-run organization, a team that I would venture to say 90% of the league wouldn't mind playing for. There's a handful of teams out there that you would want to play for organizations. The Cowboys are one of them. The Steelers are another. Those are just teams that you would assume are always going to be successful. The Cowboys, they have hit a rough patch, and expectations of the Cowboys have probably been higher than they should have been. Last year, they were supposed to be this good team, and they just weren't as good as people thought they were going to be. But because you look at, and everybody keeps talking about their O-line, this and that, their O-line hasn't been good. They're always injured. They're not able to run the ball. And Dak has done well considering what he has to work with. Very good receivers. But up front, they haven't been that dominant offensive line in a few years now. They're going to have to rebuild that. If they do give Dak that extension, they're going to have to make a decision on Zeke. I don't believe you can keep both of them at the price they're at or at the price that Dak wants to come in at and what Zeke is at and be successful. So I believe a decision will be made. If they sign Dak to an extension, I don't believe Ezekiel Elliott will continue to be on the team.
Well, or the thing we threw out there is move Amari Cooper, because CeeDee Lamb's good. Michael Gallup's pretty good. Go draft another receiver. I like Amari Cooper, but I can't pay Zeke, Dak, and Amari Cooper. I can't have those three. I just can't do it in the NFL.
Coop or Ezekiel Elliott, one of those two guys, and you're right, one of those two guys, if you can move them. But do you see anybody wanting to take Amari Cooper's contract on? I don't know if teams would be willing to take. He's a hell of a player. He's going to get open in one-on-one. He's a guy that every team would like to have on their team.
Yeah.
But at that price, do they want him?
Bill Belichick can't draft a receiver to save his life. Amari
Bill,
Cooper.
Come holler at me. I got you. Bill, you holler at me. I got you. Come talk to me before the draft, Bill. I got you.
Good seeing you, buddy.